Yo, what's up? My name is Patrouski. Welcome to my guide on the 5 or so things that you can do right now to prepare for raids upcoming in PokeMMO. Now, for those who aren't aware, we don't have a release date for raids, but in my expert opinion, I would guess that they're coming in June or July. However, when you're dealing with the PokeMMO devs, no 10 years of experience will really help you understand when something is coming. It really just comes out when it comes out. But we did get the beta test for raids back in February during the Lunar New Year event, and a similar situation like this happened before with Alpha Swarms, where Alpha Swarms were tested during an anniversary event around 2 years ago, and then it took them around 2 to 3 months for them to finalize the mechanic and release them. I'm guessing a similar situation will happen for raids, and that's why you see all of these raid dens all around the PokeMMO world. I get tons of new players ask me what these are, and it's really confusing if you weren't here in February. But before we get into our list, please keep in mind if you find today's video helpful, remember to like it. And if you don't, feel free to dislike it and subscribe if you want to see PokeMMO videos every single day. That's enough yapping. Let's jump into our tips. I'm going to rock with unintuitive ones first. Make a group of 4 people. Find a group of 4 friends that you can link up with and do raids together consistently. Raids is a cooperative activity. If you have a group of 4 people, like-minded people with understood strategies, you guys can coordinate, cooperate, hop on Discord, hop in my Discord, hop in your team chat, a link chat, whatever it may be. If you don't know, you can right-click someone's name and kind of invite them to a link, and then you'll have access to a link chat, and that's going to allow you to talk to them specifically and also enter raids and other PVM activities together. If you may or may not have any friends that play PokeMMO, I really recommend you either joining my Discord and meeting some incredible people there, or just trying to join your own team in PokeMMO. Teams in PokeMMO are super crucial in my opinion, and they really do help you meet a lot of like-minded people, help you set goals, help you get invested in other people's journeys, and they'll get invested in your journey, and it's really just a win-win-win. You will be able to solo queue for raids once they are released, but it's not always a fun time. You have to kind of play a little bit differently in solo queue since things are unexpected and you may not always get the highest quality of players. So controlling for that by pre-selecting a group of 3 other players is super crucial. Tip number 2 is to, of course, prepare Pokemon. Now, I have an in-depth guide on this going over 10 different Pokemon you could actually prepare for raids, but we're going to go over Sableye really quick. This is a really good example. If you're going to be solo queuing, you're going to need yourself a Sableye. Now, what you want on Sableye is Light Screen and Reflect. I don't have the correct moveset at the moment, so I apologize. Light Screen and Reflect, double screens, and then probably a Will-O-Wisp, and that's pretty much it. Double screens, Will-O-Wisp, and then the 4th move is kind of up to you. You're really leading with your Sableye with prankster ability just to set up for your team. If your team doesn't die, you'll most likely win. Even if your team are 3 other potatoes, as long as you can keep them alive and support them with Sableye, and then bring in your own DPS afterwards, you might be okay. Now, I'm just going to show you guys Pokemon that were really good for previous raids. These Pokemon were all-stars during the beta test, but you never know if these Pokemon will be good again. So prepare Pokemon at your own risk, but at the same time, it's pretty likely that these will be good. I'd guess around 80% or so personally. And then if you don't prepare anything, you're going to be stuck XP training and EV training and trying to build up Pokemon during the event, and you might miss out on raids because of that. Raids will most likely be a semi-time limited thing. During the event, you had 24 hours and then the next raid would release. Now, when the next raid released, the previous one wouldn't get removed. You could still go do it if you missed that, but you only had around 1 week or 2 weeks to do all of the raids. So if you were busy and didn't have Pokemon prepared towards the end of the event, it's possible you missed out on some of those raid Pokemon. But here were the big 3. Once again, I really recommend going checking over my top 10 Pokemon to prepare for raids list, but here are the top 3 that were absolutely all-stars during the events. Now, you don't need perfect IVs on these things, just 25 plus in all the stats that you need. Sableye only needs HP, defense, and special defense, and you have to have hidden ability access. That's very important. Reuniclus just needs 20 plus in every stat that isn't attack. Metagross needs every 20 plus in every stat that isn't special attack. And then usually, I don't have the moveset, so I apologize for the lack of a visual. Usually, like I said earlier, Light Screen, Reflect, Will-O-Wisp. Reuniclus will probably be something like Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Stored Power, Recover. And then Metagross was usually something like Iron Defense, Meteor Mash, Hammer Arm. And then you could go Earthquake, you could go Hone Claws, you could go Ice Punch or Fire Punch, depending on the raid. Metagross is definitely a Swiss Army knife type of Pokemon where you want to fit him to what you need at that raid. Preparing Pokemon now is extra special and I can't prep it enough, specifically because of the XP training. You might have noticed this Metagross is level 83. These guys are only level 67. They're under leveled. I have to spend more time XP training those. A lot of the Pokemon you're going to need for raids are probably going to be needed to be level 80 to 100. And that takes a long time. It's a while to XP train. So in my opinion, you also might want to pick up some items in preparation for raids. And that brings us over to step 3, not just getting things like assault gear and Eviolites and leftovers. You might want citrus berries because there's an item clause, which means you can't bring like 2 leftovers to 1 raid, for example, but you still might want that healing effect. There's tons of key items in Pokemon that you're gonna want to help you against these raids. Life orbs, etc., etc. Rocky Helmet might come up. Air Balloon was an interesting choice at some points, but if you want to either make investments or possibly just save yourself some time, I think XP items like XP charms are fantastic right now. Once again, I think a lot of people who aren't preparing or people who aren't playing PokeMMO right now are going to come back to the game and realize they have to get all these level 80 to 100 Pokemon and then realize, oh shit, I have 6 hours of XP training to do. What have I done to myself? So picking up tons of PvP items is of course encouraged. Really whatever you can afford and whatever will be the most useful on the Pokemon you're going to be using. Most of the time, that's going to be some combination of citrus berries, leftovers, maybe assault gears, etc. A lot of healing stuff for long fights. And then XP charms are going to save you a ton of time right now. I always talk about how good XP charms are because the way you have to think about it is if you XP train for 1 hour using a 100% charm, that means you saved 1 hour of time that you otherwise would have been XP training more. That's 70,000 Pokeyen to save an hour of time. When there are methods in PokeMMO to make 300,000 Pokeyen when you're like a beginner to intermediate player, and like up to 400 to 600k Pokeyen per hour once you reach endgame, 70k to save an hour is ridiculously efficient. All right, quick recap. We have covered collecting a group of 4 people. We've talked about preparing Pokemon, preparing items. Now, let's move on to a really simple one, saving Pokeyen. You've got to have a ton of Pokeyen saved up before the event. Not this much, don't worry. This is overkill. But I would try to have a couple million, maybe like 2 to 5 million saved up, just in case strategies change. You don't want to be that guy who's sitting at 20k Pokeyen because they spent all their Pokeyen and all their money and time preparing for raids, but then when raids actually come out, oh, it turns out that Articuno for some reason or some niche, I don't know, bear tick, like some weird Pokemon actually is best in slot for one specific raid due to a really specific hyper niche reason. Well, now you don't have a bear tick comp and now you're going to be like at a huge disadvantage. Maybe you can't complete the raid all of a sudden. So having Pokeyen in your back pocket in case of changes, in case of strategies, whether it's items being really good that weren't supposed to be good, which this happens all the time, you know, whether it's items becoming really good or just specific Pokemon becoming very, very good. I think if you have around 2 to 5 mil Pokeyen, you're probably solid. That probably should be all you need. Next up, prepare alt accounts. Alt accounts are already incredible in PokeMMO. You can use them to do extra berry farming, do extra gym runs, etc. But probably the most sterilely impressive thing of alt accounts is during events, during things like a raid release. You can make disgusting amounts of Pokeyen per hour. Usually you can only do 1 raid per character in PokeMMO, so the more characters you have that have access to that raid, it's going to open you up to more Pokeyen per hour and more potential profits. Let's go ahead and run the math. Typically, I would say the alpha Pokemon you get alongside the XP candies as a reward from raid, on average, is probably going to be worth anywhere from like 150 to 200,000 Pokeyen. Some of them go up and stuff over time. Alpha Excadrill is a really good example of this, where like this Pokemon is super, super expensive now. So it's tough to tell. That was obviously kind of a different event kind of raid, but you know what I mean. So let's go ahead and look into the math. Let's say 200,000 Pokeyen per average is like the reward you'll get from an alpha raid catch or from completing a raid. Let's go ahead and do, let's say it takes, if you get really good at raids, you can do raids in around 10 minutes. I'd say pretty confidently. So if you take 6-10 minutes for like 1 hour, you multiply that by 200,000 Pokeyen. If you have 6 alt accounts, you could potentially be making 1.2 million Pokeyen per hour. Now, there's a lot of ifs in this. I'm not saying anybody could do this. This would require 6 alt accounts. It would probably require a group of friends who also have 6 alt accounts, right? It's a lot of factors. But if you have all these factors met, you could be making pretty disgusting amounts of Pokeyen that are going to make up for the time you put into those accounts pretty darn quickly, I'd say. Alt accounts are ridiculously powerful, especially during events. One of my favorite things to call back to is during the anniversary event in PokeMMO, the 10-year anniversary event 2 years ago in PokeMMO. You see, you could do the boss fight for that event 1 time per character. I myself did it on 2 different characters. Took around 20 minutes. Really wasn't a big deal. Now, the reward on each character for that boss fight was to get an Alpha Starter Pokemon. Many of you may know, Alpha Starter Pokemon have exploded in terms of price. They are ridiculous. Squirtles being at like 10 or 11 mil a piece, Charmanders being at like 7 to 8 mil, Bulbasaur's at 8 mil or so. If you could get multiple alpha starters, to be fair, you would have had to hold them for 2 years. Like, even at the time, these were worth like 5 to 600k Pokeyen. So at that time, you could literally spend 20 minutes, I'm not joking, 20 minutes to make 600,000 Pokeyen times 2. You can make 1.2 million. Even if you had multiple alt accounts, you were making out like an absolute bandit during this event. But nowadays, if you happen to hold, let's say you even had 2 alt accounts, right? If you happen to hold those 2 alpha starters for 2 years, which is less likely, you're ending up with a minimum of 16 million Pokeyen. Really easy maths. Alt accounts are really powerful. Alt accounts during events like this are straight up broken. They are so insane. I cannot recommend them enough. And then the final tip, which is definitely the most boring one, but it's important. You gotta do your research, guys. I have a PokeMMO playlist dedicated to like 23 videos that are all discussing raids in PokeMMO and showing what the raids looks like. We already have the information. We already have the video. We already saw the beta test. So if you missed that beta test or you want to like refresh your memory, I'll probably be going back, as embarrassing as it sounds, I'll probably be going back and watching my own videos just to re-see the fights to refresh my memory, because I don't remember what happened and how the raids operated entirely. So I'll be doing that personally. I recommend it. Researching for stuff like this is super important. But that's it. That's the last thing I have to talk about. That is my recommendations on how to prepare for PokeMMO raids upcoming. Events like this and giant updates like this, they don't happen this often in PokeMMO, okay? It's kind of like an every couple year or so thing. It seems like we're getting those a lot more, though. It does seem like the devs are noticing the increase in popularity in PokeMMO and kind of giving us more updates to kind of snowball that effect. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. I know it's been off season in PokeMMO right now as I'm sort of recording. Things are a little bit quieter, but the fact that our quiet period right now is kind of at the same like population and popularity as our peaks like 2 or 3 years ago, it's pretty crazy to me. So hopefully it's been amazing to see all these new faces, and I hope you guys are enjoying PokeMMO still. Like the video if you enjoyed it, dislike if not, subscribe to the channel for daily videos. I upload PokeMMO videos every single day, and I now stream Monday through Friday starting at 12 p.m. ET. Discord's down below to meet those new players and ask questions if you have need any help. And if you want to go above and beyond and support the channel, it is really helpful if my content has helped you enough or entertained you enough while playing PokeMMO and you can afford it. All those things are very important. YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo are crucial to keeping the channel running. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. I will see you guys later. Peace, Reno. Hey, thanks so much for watching the entire video all the way to the end. I really appreciate that, and I hope it was a positive asset to your day. And I also want to quickly say extra thank you to everybody whose name is on this list and goes above and beyond and allows me to do what I do. Thank you very much. Have a good one.